What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and I wanted to give you an update on the situation in the Middle East. So, apparently, Britain has decided to send a Royal Navy task force to the Middle East, and the fleet consists of two amphibious assault and support ships, the RFA Lime Bay and the RFA Argus, in addition to a P-8 maritime patrol aircraft, so that's a P-8 Poseidon Subhunter, to the Eastern Mediterranean to work with U.S. battle groups that have arrived in the area following the escalation. According to the Chief of Staff of the British Royal Navy, the presence of the British Naval Group in the area is intended to deter other countries from entering into hostilities. Okay, so Britain is now sending two amphibious assault ships and a P-8 Poseidon, and that's just what they're officially telling us. I'm sure they're sending a lot more that they're not going to tell us about. And we have senior U.S. defense officials saying we see a prospect for a more significant escalation against U.S. forces and personnel in the near term. And let's be clear about it. The road leads back to Iran. Iran funds, arms, equips, and trains militias and proxy forces all across the region. Okay, so the U.S. blaming Iran again for attacks on U.S. forces, and they're saying that there could be more in the near term. And we know that at least 20 U.S. servicemen have been wounded in the last week and a half, okay? And there's been attacks on 14 U.S. bases, 14 attacks on U.S. bases in the last week and a half, okay? So this is very, very serious, guys. And apparently the U.S. is pressuring Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel not to launch a full-scale ground assault, which could endanger hostages, civilians, and further inflame tensions in the region. But instead, they want the Israelis to use a combination of precision airstrikes and targeted special operations raids. Okay, so I don't know if Israel's going to go for that, but that's the word on the street. Apparently, the U.S. military and the Biden administration are pushing Israel not to do a full-scale ground attack on Gaza. They'd rather have them just do limited airstrikes and special ops raids, which is what they've basically been doing for the last 2 weeks. But, Israel has already mobilized all of their reserves. This is the first time in the history of Israel that they've mobilized all of their reserves, okay? And they have hundreds, if not thousands, of tanks on the border of Gaza right now, okay? So they didn't do all of that to suddenly back down because the Biden administration is telling them to. We have the IDF spokesman, Rear Admiral Hagari, saying that Iran directly helped Hamas before the war, providing training, weapons, money, and technological know-how. Even now, Iranian assistance to Hamas in the form of intelligence and online incitement against the state of Israel continues. Okay, so we have the U.S. blaming Iran. Now we have Israel blaming Iran, saying Iran is responsible for everything. Okay, so you can see where this is going. And there was a UN Security Council meeting today, and the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, criticized Israel. He said, "We acknowledge that the Palestinian people are subject to a stifling occupation." Okay, that's what the Secretary General of the UN said, stifling occupation, okay? But he doesn't mention the 1,400 Israelis that were brutally killed and tortured by Hamas, okay? So Israel's ambassador to the UN responded and said that Israel will no longer issue visas to UN officials following the Secretary General's comments. And he added that it was time to teach them a lesson. Wow, guys, that is just crazy. Okay, so tensions are just really, really high right now. Okay, very, very high. And here we have a picture showing the locations of U.S. Naval assets in the Middle East. Here we have the Carrier Strike Group in the Eastern Mediterranean, just west of Cyprus. We have the USS Thomas Hudner in the northern part of the Red Sea. And then we have the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit and the USS Bataan and the USS Carter Hall in the Gulf of Aden. Okay, and there's a lot more that's going to be flowing into this region in the coming days. Okay, and we have the USS Dwight Eisenhower just off the coast of Portugal now, and it should be entering the Straits of Gibraltar within the next day to 2 days. Okay, so by this weekend, the Dwight Eisenhower Strike Group is probably going to be in the Eastern Mediterranean, okay, by this weekend or early next week. And we have the San Diego field office of the Customs and Border Patrol here in the U.S. Putting out this flyer for their employees, telling people to be aware of terrorist groups. And they specifically mention Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah. They have the patches here, okay, the insignia. And they have like possible indicators, military age males, military gear, weapons camouflage insignia, single travelers, undetermined return path, associations to Israel, the Palestinian territories, or regional affiliations. So Customs and Border Patrol is on high alert right now. And it clearly says here at the top of the flyer, situational awareness, foreign fighters of Israel-Hamas conflict may potentially be encountered at the southwest border. Okay, the San Diego Field Office Intelligence Unit assesses that individuals inspired by or reacting to the current Israel-Hamas conflict may attempt travel to or from the areas of hostilities in the Middle East via circuitous transit across the southwest border. So this is very concerning, guys. Okay, we know that our border is very porous, and there's probably thousands, if not millions, of sleeper agents already in this country. And when this war in the Middle East kicks off, those sleeper agents are going to be activated, and they're going to carry out random acts of violence. They're going to carry out terror attacks. They're going to attack our infrastructure. They're going to go after our power supply. They're going to go after substations and things like that. Okay, so get prepared, guys. Okay, make sure that you can carry a self-defense tool where you live and carry it 24/7. Be aware of your surroundings. Know where exits are. Know where cover and concealment is. Have a plan. Have a bug-out bag with you at all times, which should be centered around a fallout shelter. Okay, so times are getting crazy. Okay, we're getting attacked on all fronts here. Okay, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and even here at home now. Okay, and all these fronts are going to just continue to escalate as time goes on. Okay, I personally believe that Russia might open up another front in the European theater. I think they're going to go after the Baltics and possibly Finland soon, and they might wait for Israel to make their move on Gaza, and they might wait until the U.S. is bogged down in the Middle East for them to attack the Baltic countries or Finland or other parts of Eastern Europe. Okay, so things are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better. I hate to say it. And apparently the Domino's Pizza in Pentagon City has been very, very busy lately. And this indicates that there's a lot of Pentagon employees that are working overtime and they're ordering pizza, to get food, obviously. And here we have a video of the general of the Marine Corps, Eric Smith. This is the guy who's going to be going to the Middle East to command the potential war in the Middle East soon. And I want you to listen to what he says here. He basically threatens the Hamas and Hezbollah and all the jihadists. He threatens them and says if anything happens to the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit that's over there in the Middle East right now, that anybody targeting them is going to have their kids raised by someone else. So basically threatening any jihadists. So let's listen to what he says here. Very, very strong words.
I'll be less diplomatic and more Marine-like. For those that are in the area, if that MEU has to go in, if you target them, someone else will raise your children.
Okay, so he said that at the Beirut Memorial Observance just 2 days ago. Okay, he said if that MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, the one that's in the Gulf of Aden, if that MEU has to go in and you target them, your kids are going to be raised by someone else. Okay, I mean, that's just classic Marine speak right there.
I'll be less diplomatic and more Marine-like.
He says, I'll be less diplomatic and more Marine-like.
I'll be less diplomatic and more Marine-like. For those that are in the area, if that MEU has to go in, if you target them, someone else will raise your children.
Strong words there, guys. Strong words. And we have the U.S. assessing that the missiles fired by the Houthi rebels from Yemen last Thursday had a range of 2,000 plus kilometers, guys. Where do you think the Houthi rebels are going to get 2,000 plus kilometer ballistic missiles? They're not going to make it themselves. They're going to get it from Iran or someone else. Okay, so obviously Iran is supplying the Houthis, so that's pretty concerning. And we have the leader of the Ansarullah movement in Yemen. He's saying that they're ready to mobilize hundreds of thousands of fighters to go to Palestine to fight against Israel. Okay, so this is the leader of the Ansarullah movement in Yemen. Okay, and he says our people are ready to mobilize hundreds of thousands of fighters to go to Palestine and join the Palestinian people in the sacred jihad against the Zionist enemy. Okay, so he's calling for jihad basically here. Okay, join the Palestinian people in the sacred jihad against the Zionist enemy. Okay, so I'm telling you guys, they've already declared jihad. And when Israel goes into Gaza, it's going to be worldwide jihad. It's going to be crazy, okay? And please make sure you guys are prepared. Things are going to really spiral out of control very soon. And here we have a video coming out of Egypt. The Egyptian president inspected his troops. And I want you to look at how much equipment Egypt has ready to go. Okay, look at all these tanks, guys. This is just mind-boggling. And all these missiles. Look at that. Okay, Egypt is ready to go to war. And I don't know if they're going to go to war with Israel, but they're ready to go, basically. Okay, there's the Egyptian president. Looks like they have these HIMARS here, or M270s. They have a lot of U.S. equipment. There's an M1 Abrams. So I don't know if Egypt's going to turn on Israel, but they have all kinds of American equipment. Look, they have Humvees, they have M1 Abrams, they have M270s, which are basically just HIMARS mounted onto a tracked vehicle. But, I mean, just a massive amount of tanks. Look at all these tanks. Okay, this is insane. Okay, so Egypt is preparing, and I want to read to you what the Egyptian president said. And the Egyptian president said, our military is alert and ready to answer our nation's call. The army will preserve Egypt's national security without transgression. And the Egyptian commander of the 3rd Field Army said, "We are in the highest levels of combat readiness, ready to cover the ground wherever we are assigned to go to maintain the security of the homeland." Okay, that's what the Egyptian president said. And Erdogan had some things to say today. Erdogan is the president of Turkey. He said, "We will do everything against Israel diplomatically and militarily if necessary." Okay, we will do everything against Israel diplomatically and militarily if necessary. He also said that Netanyahu abused Turkey's goodwill and announced that he has canceled his visit to Israel. And he said that the U.S. and Israel will lose because they oppose justice. And he also said that countries outside the region are adding fuel to the fire in the name of support to Israel. Okay, so Erdogan is against Israel. He's against the U.S., yet he's a member of NATO, and we have nuclear weapons in Turkey. Okay, we have several dozen B-61s in Turkey. Okay, and Erdogan spoke with Putin just 2 days ago, and they agreed on the fact that Israel is basically stepping outside of their bounds, and they basically agreed on one position on the situation in the Middle East, which is an anti-Israeli position. And it's very rare for Erdogan and Putin to agree on anything lately. Okay, but for them to agree on this is very concerning. And we have French President Emmanuel Macron going to Egypt today to meet with the Egyptian president. And Macron already met with the King Abdullah of Jordan in Amman. And Reuters is reporting that Australia has deployed 2 more military aircraft and a significant number of defense personnel to the Middle East to help support its citizens there if the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas escalates. Okay, so Australia is deploying their forces. And we have the Danish embassy in Beirut urging Danish citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. Okay, so all these countries in Europe and around the world are getting their people out of Lebanon, telling people to leave Lebanon. So obviously, Lebanon is going to turn into a war zone. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken asked the Qatari Prime Minister less than 2 weeks ago to tone down Al Jazeera's rhetoric about the war in Gaza. And apparently, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is skeptical about the plans of the Israeli Army Command and is determined to delay the start of the ground operation in the Gaza Strip, according to Axios, citing U.S. officials. And apparently, U.S. military officials are trying to steer Israel away from the type of brutal combat the U.S. engaged in during the Iraq War, sources tell CNN. U.S. military advisors are urging Israelis to use a combination of precision airstrikes and targeted special operations raids. They are also drawing on strategies developed during the battle by U.S.-led coalition forces to retake the Iraqi city of Mosul from ISIS, which relied more heavily on special operations forces. Like Hamas, ISIS built tunnels throughout Mosul and used civilians as human shields. Okay, so very interesting. The Israeli army announced that the entire area within 1,000 meters of the border fence with Gaza has been classified as a combat zone. And the U.S. aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln left the port of San Diego last night for an unknown and unannounced destination. So very interesting. And Syrian state media is reporting that the headquarters for the 5th Armored Division of the Syrian Army within the town of Izra was destroyed by Israeli airstrikes last night, with further reports that a radar battalion and weapons depot of the Syrian Air Force were also targeted near the town of Karfa. And also there were various explosions heard today in Aleppo, and the airport in Aleppo is still out of service. And Hezbollah militants targeted an Israeli tank with missiles at the Avivim barracks on the border with Lebanon, killing and wounding its crew members. And an IDF spokesperson said the IDF attacked targets of the terrorist organization Hezbollah in Lebanese territory. IDF warplanes recently attacked a number of military targets of the Hezbollah terrorist organization. During the attack, terrorist infrastructures were destroyed, including a military compound and an observation post of the terror organization Hezbollah. Okay, so Israel is now using their fighter jets to strike Hezbollah and also Syria. Okay, they're starting to attack Syria now more than just their airports. They're actually going after the Syrian army. Okay, they destroyed the headquarters of the 5th Armored Division of the Syrian army, guys. That is huge. Absolutely huge. So Israel is facing an attack from multiple fronts, guys. Okay, multiple fronts: Syria, Lebanon, Iran, possibly Egypt, and who knows where else from. Okay, so this could be a biblical war, and it's continuing to escalate day by day. And I want to just go over some flight paths with you guys. Here we have a U.S. Cobra Ball airplane that flew from Anchorage towards Russia, and I'm not sure where it went after it crossed the Bering Sea, but this plane is designed to detect the launch of ballistic missiles. Okay. And here we have a Nuke Sniffer plane that was airborne earlier this afternoon. It took off from Offutt Air Base and it flew over Kansas, and it turned off its transponder in south central Kansas, north central Oklahoma. Okay. Very, very strange. These planes can detect radiation. And here we have a U.S. Combat Sentinel plane that was patrolling Kaliningrad again. And this is probably the 7th time in the last 2 weeks that one of these Combat Sentinels has been deployed to this area. And they specifically focus on the coast of Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad is a Russian province that is detached from Russia, and it's sandwiched between Lithuania and Poland. And they have a bunch of warships here. The Russian Baltic fleet is here. And so you can see this reconnaissance plane was flying along the coastline. And what makes this very concerning is that these Combat Sentinel planes are specifically used when the president and the top generals of the U.S. military need intelligence about something. They send in these planes. They only have 2 of them in the entire Air Force. Okay, so if they have to send one of them somewhere, it means it's very serious. And especially when you consider their mission, they're providing intelligence directly to the president and the top generals. Okay, so I'm very concerned that something could happen here in the Baltics, in northern Poland. Russia may go after the Suwalki Gap, or they may just attack all the Baltic countries, Poland, who knows? But this is very, very unusual. And right now we have 3 NATO reconnaissance planes heading to the Eastern Mediterranean. We have a U.S. Rivet Joint, and we have 2 British Beach Shadow planes. So a lot of reconnaissance in the Eastern Mediterranean. We have multiple C-17 Globemasters going into Europe. This was last night. We had several C-17s fly from Fort Bragg, which is the home of the Special Forces, which they renamed to Fort Liberty. But several C-17s coming from Fort Bragg. We know who's on those planes, guys. Okay, if it's coming from Fort Bragg, it's going to have Green Berets on it. So the Green Berets are deploying to Europe, potentially the Eastern Mediterranean. That's pretty serious, guys. Okay. And here we have more C-17s going down to Israel today. Several C-17s, just a massive flow of weapons and personnel into the Eastern Mediterranean. Hundreds of these C-17s going to the Eastern Mediterranean. And I've been getting all kinds of emails from people telling me that they've seen unusual military activity in their area. So thank you guys for sending me those emails. I really appreciate that information. But just so many people telling me that where they live, they're seeing, low flying jets and planes that they've never seen before. So our military is gearing up for World War III. And last night there were two sub Hunter planes patrolling the eastern Mediterranean just off the coast of Israel and Lebanon. And in the Baltic Sea, the Finns have concluded that the reason why the Baltic pipeline was damaged was due to an anchor that was being dragged along the sea floor. And what you're looking at here is a picture of a Chinese container ship that sailed over the Baltic pipe on the same day that it was damaged. And so the Finns are thinking that maybe this Chinese container ship purposely or accidentally dragged its anchor along the Baltic Sea floor to try to damage that pipeline and also the communications cable. Okay. So they're saying the damage was done by an anchor that was dragged on the sea floor. They could see the drag marks on the sea floor, and also they found the actual anchor. It broke off, I guess, and landed on the sea floor after it hit the pipeline. It broke, and also the hook on the anchor, one of the hooks broke off from the force when it lodged on that pipeline. So obviously this was on purpose. I mean, why would you drag an anchor on the bottom of the sea? It's very dangerous to do that. So that's pretty much all the latest information that I have. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Make sure you have the notifications set up. And to do that, you just click the bell icon below this video. So this way you can get notified when I post these emergency updates. And also, I will be going live when this war kicks off. And I'll try to stay live 24/7 because I think this is going to be the biggest event in our lifetimes. So I will be going live. So make sure you have your notifications set up. So this way, when I go live, you can get notified. But other than that, I'll keep you updated. I'll be back later on this evening with another update. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.